The anonymous letter arrived on a Tuesday morning, typed on generic white paper with no return address, claiming I had violated 3 separate city ordinances that didn't exist. I'm Grady Young, 34 years old, a licensed clinical social worker who thought I understood manipulation tactics until I became the target. I'd lived in Silver Ridge District in Hawks Point, Delaware for 18 months, working with at-risk families while maintaining what I believed was a quiet, unremarkable suburban existence. The letter referenced Ordinance 847B regarding, quote, excessive noise during restricted hours, Ordinance 203F about unauthorized landscaping modifications, and Ordinance 451C concerning improper waste disposal protocols. Each violation carried a fine of $250. I walked to my kitchen window and stared at my backyard. No landscaping modifications, no excessive noise. My trash bins sat exactly where they belonged on the concrete pad installed by the previous homeowner. The letter bore the official Hawks Point City seal. The formatting matched legitimate municipal correspondence I'd received when I first purchased the property. Someone had invested considerable effort into making this document appear authentic. I called the city clerk's office. The woman who answered confirmed that none of those ordinance numbers existed in the municipal code. She suggested I file a report with the Community Development Office if I suspected fraudulent documentation. That afternoon, I checked my mailbox again. Empty. I asked my neighbor Travis Campbell if he'd received any unusual correspondence. He shook his head, mentioning only his usual utility bills and a flyer from a new fitness center. The next morning brought another letter. This one referenced a, quote, formal complaint filed by concerned residents regarding my failure to maintain property standards consistent with neighborhood covenants. It demanded I appear at a hearing scheduled for the following Friday at the Silver Ridge Community Center. I pulled out my HOA documentation. No such hearing appeared on any official calendar. The community center booking system showed no reservations for that date. Someone was systematically targeting me with fabricated violations and non-existent proceedings. The precision suggested intimate knowledge of municipal formatting and neighborhood procedures. This wasn't random harassment. I photographed both letters with my phone, noting the paper quality and printing characteristics. The documents used the same font as legitimate city correspondence. The margins matched official formatting guidelines. Someone had access to municipal templates or possessed sophisticated document creation capabilities. Friday arrived. I drove to the community center anyway, finding the parking lot empty except for a maintenance truck. The building was locked. No hearing, no residents, no officials. That evening, I discovered a third letter tucked under my doormat. This one was different, personal. It referenced my employment at Delaware Family Services, my caseload details, and my supervisor's name. Information that wasn't public record. The letter suggested my pattern of municipal violations would be forwarded to my professional licensing board and my employer's human resources department. It mentioned specific clients by case number, implying my legal troubles might compromise my ability to serve vulnerable families. I sat in my living room, holding the letter with trembling hands. Someone had accessed confidential employment information. Someone knew details about my professional life that required either authorized access or sophisticated surveillance. The harassment had evolved from property-based fabrications to direct threats against my career and professional reputation. The employment threat changed everything. I needed to understand who had access to my professional information and why they were escalating their campaign against me. I started with my immediate neighbors. The Campbells lived directly across the street. Travis Campbell worked in construction management. His wife, Alice Campbell, taught elementary school. They'd been friendly since I moved in, often waving from their driveway during my morning runs. Next door lived the Hendersons. Alice Henderson was a retired nurse. Her husband had passed 2 years ago. She kept meticulous records of neighborhood activities, often mentioning suspicious vehicles or unusual foot traffic during our brief conversations. The house to my left belonged to the Pattersons. Travis Patterson was a software engineer who worked remotely. His wife Alice Patterson managed a local dental practice. They traveled frequently for work, leaving their house dark for weeks at a time. I decided to start with Alice Henderson. Her attention to neighborhood details might have captured something I'd missed. I knocked on her door Tuesday evening. She answered, wearing gardening gloves, soil still clinging to her fingers. "Grady, how nice to see you. I was just finishing my tomatoes." "Alice, I hope you don't mind me asking, but have you noticed anything unusual around my property lately? Any unfamiliar vehicles or people?" Her expression shifted. "Actually, yes. There's been a white sedan parked on Maple Street several times over the past month, usually during weekday afternoons. I assumed it was someone visiting the Pattersons, but they've been in Portland for 3 weeks. Did you get a license plate number?" I wrote it down. "Delaware plates, starts with PC. Let me get my notebook." She returned with a small spiral notebook filled with neat handwriting. Dates, times, vehicle descriptions, and license plate numbers covered multiple pages. Here it is. PC 4729, white Honda Accord. I first noticed it on September 15th around 2:30 p.m. It's appeared 6 times since then, always when you're at work. The timing was significant. Someone was monitoring my schedule, visiting when they knew I'd be absent. "Alice, have you seen anyone approach my house during these visits?" "Once. A woman got out of the car and walked to your front door. She had a folder or clipboard. I thought she might be a real estate agent or insurance adjuster." "Can you describe her?" "Mid-30s, athletic build, dark hair and a ponytail. She wore workout clothes, like she'd come from the gym." The description triggered a memory. Marcus Webb, my next-door neighbor on the right side, had mentioned hiring a personal trainer who made house calls. I'd seen her arriving at his place several times, always carrying a gym bag and clipboard for tracking workouts. I thanked Alice and walked directly to Marcus's house. His garage door was open, revealing his home gym setup. Weights, resistance bands, and a treadmill occupied most of the space. Marcus emerged from the garage, towel around his neck, clearly finishing a workout session. "Hey Grady, what's up?" "Marcus, I hope this doesn't sound strange, but could you tell me about your personal trainer? I think she might have been at my house by mistake." His face brightened. "Jenna Morrison. She's fantastic. Been training with her for 8 months. Why do you think she was at your place?" My neighbor saw someone matching her description at my front door. Athletic build, dark hair, workout clothes? That's definitely Jenna, but she wouldn't have any reason to visit your house. She only comes here for our sessions. "Does she have access to your house when you're not home?" Marcus hesitated. "Well, yes. I gave her a key so she could set up equipment before I get home from work. She's completely trustworthy, runs her own business, has tons of clients." "What kind of business information does she handle for you?" "Just fitness stuff, health assessments, workout schedules, although..." He paused, looking uncomfortable. "What is it?" "She helped me dispute an HOA violation last month. Said she had experience with municipal procedures, from dealing with business licensing. She offered to review my documentation and draft a response letter." My pulse quickened. "Did you give her access to any official documents?" "Just the violation notice and my property deed. She said she needed to verify the specific covenant language. She's really knowledgeable about legal formatting." The pieces were connecting. Jenna Morrison had access to Marcus's house, his official documents, and experience with municipal procedures. She'd been at my property multiple times when I wasn't home. "Marcus, does Jenna know what I do for work?" I might have mentioned it. We talked during workouts. "I probably said you work for social services." "Why?" I explained about the fraudulent letters and the threats against my employment. Marcus's expression grew increasingly concerned. "Grady, that's impossible. Jenna wouldn't do something like that. She's helped me with several neighborhood issues. She's practically a community advocate." "What kind of neighborhood issues?" property line disputes, HOA complaints, utility problems. She seems to know everyone at City Hall, always offers to make calls or review documents for neighbors. The scope of her involvement was becoming clear. Jenna Morrison had positioned herself as a helpful community resource while systematically gathering information about residents' personal and professional lives. Marcus, I need to ask you something important. Has Jenna ever asked about my work schedule or mentioned my employer? He thought for a moment. Actually, yes. Last week she asked if you worked standard business hours because she'd noticed your car was always gone during her afternoon appointments. I told her you probably worked 8 to 5 like most people. Did you mention Delaware Family Services specifically? I think so. She seemed interested in social work, said she'd considered that career path herself. I felt sick. Jenna Morrison had been systematically collecting information about me through casual conversations with my neighbor. She knew my work schedule, my employer, and had access to official document templates through her supposed expertise in municipal procedures. Marcus, I need you to think carefully. Has Jenna ever been inside your house when you weren't home? A few times. She sets up equipment before I arrive. But she's never been anywhere except the garage and kitchen. Does she have access to your computer or personal files? No, absolutely not, although. He stopped mid-sentence. What? She borrowed my laptop once to look up HOA covenant language online. Said her phone battery had died. But that was just for a few minutes. A few minutes was enough to access saved passwords, browse internet history, or copy files. If Marcus had ever logged into neighborhood forums, city websites, or HOA portals from his laptop, Jenna could have accessed those accounts. Marcus, do you use your laptop to access the Silver Ridge HOA portal or any city websites? His face went pale. Yes. I have saved passwords for the HOA portal, the city's property records database, and the community center booking system. Oh God, Grady. Do you think she? I think Jenna Morrison has been using your access credentials to create fraudulent documents and gather information about neighborhood residents, including confidential details about my employment. We stood in his driveway as the implications sank in. Jenna had used her position as Marcus's trusted personal trainer to gain access to his home, his computer, and his municipal account credentials. She'd leveraged that access to target me with increasingly sophisticated harassment. We need to document everything, I said. Starting with changing all your passwords and checking your account activity logs. Marcus nodded grimly. Jenna has a session scheduled here tomorrow at 4 p.m. What do? We gather. And we find out exactly how deep this goes. The betrayal was complete. Someone I'd never directly interacted with had systematically invaded my privacy and threatened my livelihood using my neighbor's trust and access credentials. Tomorrow would determine whether Jenna Morrison's campaign against me was personal vendetta or something far more calculated. Marcus and I spent the next 18 hours preparing our trap. First, we documented everything. Marcus logged into his HOA portal account and downloaded 3 months of activity logs. The timestamps revealed a pattern. Someone had accessed his credentials on 17 different occasions, always during his scheduled training sessions with Jenna. The logs showed searches for my property records, employment verification requests, and downloads of neighborhood contact lists. Someone had used Marcus's administrative access to pull confidential resident information that should never have been available to a personal trainer. Look at this, Marcus said, pointing to his laptop screen. She accessed the city's business licensing database using my credentials. Searched for your employer's contract information with Delaware County. The search had occurred 2 days before I received the first fraudulent HOA violation notice. Jenna had researched my workplace's government contracts, then crafted her harassment campaign to threaten my security clearance. We changed all of Marcus's passwords and enabled two-factor authentication on every account. Then we prepared recording equipment. I contacted Officer Reese Harris at the county Community Development Office. I need to report identity theft and fraudulent use of municipal access credentials. That's a serious allegation, Mr. Young. Do you have documentation? Computer access logs, fraudulent documents, and a planned confrontation tomorrow at 4 p.m. Can you provide guidance on collection? Officer Harris agreed to review our documentation and advised us on legal recording requirements in Delaware. Single-party consent meant Marcus could record conversations in his own home without notification. The next afternoon, I positioned myself in Marcus's kitchen with a clear view of the garage. Marcus set up his phone to record audio and placed a tablet to capture video from multiple angles. Jenna Morrison arrived precisely at 4 p.m. in her white Honda Civic. She was younger than I'd expected, maybe 35. With short blonde hair and the confident posture of someone accustomed to being in control. "Ready for today's session?" she asked Marcus, wheeling her equipment bag toward the garage. "Actually, I wanted to talk first, about some computer issues I've been having." Jenna's expression shifted slightly. "Computer issues?" "Someone's been accessing my municipal accounts, the HOA portal, city databases, using my saved passwords. That's terrible. Have you contacted the police?" Her response was too smooth, too practiced. She didn't ask obvious questions like when it happened, or what was accessed. She already knew. "The access logs show the intrusions occurred during our training sessions," Marcus continued. "Always when you were here." Jenna set down her equipment bag. "Marcus, that's a serious accusation. Are you suggesting I somehow used your computer without permission?" "I'm not suggesting anything. I'm stating facts. Someone used my laptop to access confidential resident information, create fraudulent HOA documents, and research my neighbor's employment details." "Your neighbor?" Jenna's voice carried a note of genuine curiosity, as if she didn't know exactly which neighbor Marcus meant. "Grady Young, the social worker who lives 3 houses down. Someone's been harassing him with fake violations and threatening his job." Jenna was quiet for several seconds. When she spoke again, her tone had changed completely. "Grady Young destroyed my brother's life." The admission hung in the air like a physical presence. Marcus glanced toward the kitchen, knowing I was listening. "Your brother?" "David Morrison. Grady was his caseworker 5 years ago. Filed reports that cost David custody of his daughter. Recommended termination of parental rights based on fabricated." I felt my stomach drop. David Morrison. I remembered the case clearly. Documented neglect, missed court dates, failed drug tests. That hadn't been fabricated. It had been overwhelming and heartbreaking. "David lost everything because of Grady's lies," Jenna continued. "His daughter, his apartment, his job. He's been homeless for 3 years. So yes, I used your computer access to research Grady Young. I wanted him to understand what it feels like to lose everything." Marcus kept his voice steady. "So you created fake HOA violations?" "I created consequences. The same way Grady created consequences for my brother, with his biased reports and selective documentation." "Jenna, you committed identity theft and fraud. You used my municipal credentials to access confidential information. I used available resources to expose a corrupt social worker who destroys families for a living." Her justification was complete and unwavering. In her mind, she'd been conducting a righteous campaign against someone who'd wronged her family. "Where did you get the HOA letterhead and violation codes?" Marcus asked. "The templates are available through the portal. I modified existing violation notices and printed them on standard letterhead. Everything looked official because it was created using official resources." "And the employment verification requests?" "I contacted Grady's supervisor directly. Explained that a concerned neighbor had observed behavior that might compromise his security clearance. Suggested they review his case files for patterns of bias or misconduct." My hands were shaking. Jenna had systematically attacked my professional reputation using information gathered through Marcus's stolen credentials. "Jenna, you need to understand the legal implications of what you've done," Marcus said. "I understand perfectly. I also understand that Grady Young has never faced consequences for the lives he's destroyed. Sometimes justice requires creative approaches. This isn't justice. This is harassment and fraud. Call it whatever you want. Grady knows what he did to David. Now he knows what it feels like to be targeted by someone with access to official systems." The recording captured everything. Her admission of using Marcus's credentials, her detailed explanation of the harassment campaign, and her complete lack of remorse. After Jenna left, Marcus and I compiled our package: computer access logs, recorded confession, fraudulent documents, and timeline documentation. Everything needed to file formal charges. Officer Reese Harris reviewed our materials the next morning. This is identity theft, computer fraud, and harassment. We'll need to involve the Delaware State Police Cybercrimes Unit. The investigation moved quickly. Jenna's confession provided probable cause for search warrants. Police recovered additional from her apartment: printed HOA templates, research files on my employment, and detailed notes about Marcus's schedule and computer habits. The Delaware County prosecutor filed charges: identity theft, computer fraud, harassment, and impersonation of a public official. Jenna Morrison was arrested 6 days after our recorded confrontation. During the legal proceedings, I learned more about David Morrison's case. Court records confirmed my documentation had been accurate and thorough. David had missed 12 consecutive supervised visits, failed 4 court-ordered drug tests, and been arrested twice for domestic violence during the custody evaluation period. Jenna had constructed an elaborate fantasy where I was the villain in her brother's story. The reality was that David Morrison had lost custody because of his own choices and actions, not because of biased reporting. The case resolved through a plea agreement. Jenna Morrison pled guilty to identity theft and computer fraud. She received 18 months probation, community service, and restitution for my legal expenses. Marcus testified about the violation of his trust and the unauthorized use of his municipal access credentials. The HOA implemented new security protocols requiring 2-factor authentication for all administrative accounts. My employer conducted a thorough review of Jenna's allegations and found no of misconduct or bias in my case files. My security clearance remained intact. But the damage to my sense of safety and privacy felt permanent. Someone had invaded my life using sophisticated methods and official resources, all because of a family grudge based on distorted facts. The betrayal wasn't just personal, it was professional and systematic. 8 months later, I stood in my new kitchen, watching snow fall on Silver Ridge through double-pane windows. The house felt different now. Secure. The new security system monitored every entrance. Motion sensors covered the perimeter. I had learned to sleep with technology standing guard. The Morrison case had become a teaching tool. Delaware County used our documentation methods in training sessions for social workers and municipal employees. The systematic nature of Jenna's harassment campaign illustrated how personal vendettas could exploit official channels. I serve as an expert witness in harassment and intimidation court cases. 3 times this year, attorneys have called about cases involving identity theft and fraudulent HOA violations. The pattern recognition skills I developed during my own investigation proved valuable in courtrooms across Delaware. Marcus Chen received a commendation from the city for his cooperation in the investigation. The municipal IT department implemented new protocols requiring biometric authentication for all property database access. No more shared passwords or borrowed credentials. The Silver Ridge HOA hired a professional management company. Alice Campbell, our new community manager, instituted quarterly security audits and mandatory board training on document verification procedures. The days of amateur administration were over. Travis Campbell bought David Morrison's house at auction. The property had fallen into foreclosure during David's legal troubles. Travis renovated the entire structure, removing any trace of the Morrison family's presence in our neighborhood. I received updates on Jenna Morrison's probation progress through victim notification services. She completed her community service at a nonprofit literacy center. Her restitution payments arrived monthly, covering my legal expenses and security system installation. The experience changed how I approached my work. Every case file now included additional verification steps. Every home visit generated photographic documentation. I had learned that professional thoroughness was the best defense against personal attacks. My supervisor assigned me to a new district across town. The change felt necessary. Silver Ridge held too many memories of violation and surveillance. Starting fresh in Millbrook Gardens meant new neighbors who knew nothing about HOA fraud or custody battles. But I kept the house on Maple Street. The mortgage was manageable, and selling felt like surrender. Instead, I rented it to a young teacher who appreciated the security features and quiet neighborhood. She sends monthly photos of the garden I planted last spring. The betrayal had taught me about the intersection of personal grudges and professional systems. How someone with enough determination could weaponize bureaucracy against an innocent target. How trust, once broken, required constant vigilance to rebuild. Yet life had returned to a manageable rhythm. Work provided purpose and structure. The new neighborhood offered anonymity and peace. The legal system had delivered justice, even if it couldn't restore innocence. On quiet evenings, I reviewed the case files one more time. Not from paranoia, but from professional curiosity. The documentation told a complete story of systematic harassment and its resolution. The paper trail that had saved my career now served as in other people's battles. The snow continued falling, covering Silver Ridge in pristine white. Somewhere in that neighborhood, new residents were discovering the community garden and the walking trails. They would never know about the Morrison case or the months of fear that had gripped Maple Street. It was finally over, and the silence felt earned.